So let's get started. First item is any changes to the agenda.
And Mike, let me know if you want me to pull anything from the packet up onto the screen.
Okay. I'm good. I don't know if anyone wants to see the agenda or anything else, but I've got my agenda over on the left side here. So next we have public comments, an opportunity for anyone from the public to address the board with any concerns not on tonight's agenda. Is there anyone from the public? Guess not. So we'll move on to action on the consent agenda. And we had some items.
I'll move we accept the consent agenda or approve.
Okay, Jim, do I have a second? Michael?
For second.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion and approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Or raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Anyone want to abstain? Okay. Let's approve. We'll move on. Next item is minutes of the October 21st, 2020 meeting. Looking for a motion and a second to approve those minutes with corrections, if there are any.
So moved.
I'll second.
Did you get that, Amy? Okay. Any corrections or edits or comments on the minutes?
Certainly look good to me.
Wow.
Hey, look good to me too.
Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
Abstaining.
I'm sorry.
Barbara is abstaining.
Okay. Any other abstentions? Okay, and we'll move on. We have next the FY20 audit report. We have Fred with us tonight. Charlie, did you want to say anything, or is Forrest there, or Forrest, before I hand it off to Fred?
Well, I guess I'll start with a thank you to Fred and to Forrest and Amy. Fred, let me know if you want me to pull the document up, or I assume everybody has poured through every page of the audit, and maybe has it memorized, but do you want me to pull it up so you can refer to specific pages, Fred, or?
Up to you. I mean, I can.
I'm seeing some no's.
I'm thinking yes, Charlie.
You are?
That's what I'm thinking. I may be the only one, though. Fred, I mean, Jeff is shaking his head no, saying, "What's the matter with you, O'Brien?" All right, never mind.
We'll all open it up from the website.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe everybody's not using two computers, and that would be confusing. Never mind.
I'm only the alternate tonight, but most people have two screens, Mike.
Oh, no.
That's what I just corrected myself on, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, anybody, if Fred's talking about something and you want me to pull the screen up, I'm happy to do that. We'll do it if you need to.
All right. With no further delays, Fred, let's throw it over to you. And thank you for being here tonight.
All right, thanks, Mike. So we've gone through this in the draft stage with the Finance and Executive Committee. And so this is a final audit report that's been delivered. The only last step to do is to submit it to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, which will do that tomorrow, just in case there's any issues with the board tonight. So that's the last step. Once it's there, any Fed or state agency can download it from there and get access to it. And that's the main way of transmission at this point in time. So this is a multi-part document in the past. It's an audit done under generally accepted auditing standards. It's also done in accordance with government auditing standards, which are a little more stringent. Same level of standards that all of your cities and towns have to be audited under. But in addition to that, because the commission spent more than $750,000 in federal funds, it also has to be done under what's called uniform guidance, which are federal standards. And that's additional standards. It requires both government auditing standards, and the uniform guidance requires us to include reports on compliance with laws and regulations and internal control as part of the audit. So it is a complete document. It includes all of those things. In terms of the financial statements, our opinion, which is on page 2, but it simply says that it's a clean, unmodified opinion. It means you prepare your financial statements in full conformance with generally accepted accounting principles. So no changes this year. There may be a few next year. There's been some changes that have been deferred because of the pandemic. I don't think anything that will affect you too much. So it shouldn't be significantly different next year. What I typically read when I'm looking at an audit or a new client is I go and look at the management's discussion and analysis. And that runs about 7 pages. And it really is a good snapshot of the year. It's written by management. It's in narrative format. There's some summary financial information in there. But in about 6 or 7 pages, you get a really good sense of what happened for the year. And our responsibility is to make sure that everything in there is consistent with what's in the audit report, and it is. I don't know that I'll spend a lot of time on the numbers. The only difference this year, and I don't know, Charlie, if you want to put up Exhibit 1, I can certainly look at that. That's on page 11. So your net assets is going down each year, but it's primarily due to, in fact, completely due to your participation in Beamers, the Municipal Employee Retirement System. And so I actually had a discussion with GASB, which is the standard setting body, and I requested that we could show the bottom section broken out between what the impact of Beamers is versus what your operations are. And I don't know, Charlie, you can slide that down a little bit to the bottom of that page. If there's a way to shrink it. Go a little further. Yeah, we're getting close. There we are. So in total, your total net position is 89,426, second line from the bottom. A year ago, that was 185,989. But if you look and you can see that without your participation in VEMR's, that's almost $500,000. If that wasn't there, you'd have almost a $600,000 net position. And that's really what you have to work with, because the VEMR's is simply being paid over time based on normal rates over many, many years in the future. And there is volatility in that. It's affected by their actuaries, by the stock market. So I think breaking it out will give you a much better picture of where you really stand at the end of the year. I was hoping to convince them not to be able to include it, but it has to be there. It's a requirement under generally accepted government auditing standards or accounting principles. But they did not have a major concern. They had some concern, but not a major concern with breaking it out like this, so that you could see what things you control and what things aren't under your control, and that's the VEMR's. So I think this is a little better presentation. And if you start comparing that other line over time, so last year that was about 560,000. This year it's 588. It actually went up by about $28,000. And so, while your total went down based on operations, you basically held your own and went up just a little bit. So I think it really gives you a much better picture. Rest of the report, there's a lot of footnotes that tell everybody what you are, how you operate, what your various assets and liabilities are. There are required schedules in the back, 2 schedules on the VEMR's participation. There's a budget actual report that shows that you basically plan to take in and spend about $5.3 million. You both took in and spent much less than that, but a lot of it has to do with projects that simply don't happen. And so in total, the
What
budget,
page is that?
that's page 30.
Thank you.
Yep. So while the variances look large on the total, when you get to the bottom line, the budget was to actually increase your net position by $8,500, and you did by 33. And so that's kind of the 25,000 we were talking about on the balance sheet. So basically, if the revenues don't come in, you don't spend them because you earn the revenues by basically spending consultant and contract services. So they really wash. There's a number of schedules that are required by the state to show them how we calculate your indirect cost rate. The Agency of Commerce and Community Development requires a schedule to show how we get their grant funds. And then finally, there's a schedule that shows each and every one of your federal grants. It's required to be in the report. The state and feds will use this to make sure that all of their money is accounted for and included in the report. And then Charlie, maybe if you could just put up page 41, the very last page. So page 41 is a required schedule that is the summary of all the findings. And you're going to see at the top the financial statement findings. As we said, there was an unmodified clean opinion. We had no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal control. We have no non-compliance at the financial statement level. And then when we had to do the federal work, again, we had no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, and no compliance issues. So no findings that need to be reported under federal standards. I think this is the same program we tested in the past. It's your major program, highway planning and construction. And the bottom line is key. Because you've done this continue to do this, but do this at least 2 years in a row, that means you're deemed to be a low-risk auditee, which from a federal and state perspective is an indication that you have the systems and controls in place to be able to appropriately manage state and federal funds. So they look at this. This is an important thing. It's and you continue to get this year after year. We had no management letter findings, no other recommendations. I think we had one last year that was dealt with. So everything we've raised in the past has been dealt with, and there were no issues to raise this year. So a lot of information I went through pretty quickly, but I'd be happy to answer anything specific that anyone has or any general questions.
Anyone have any questions for Fred?
Mr. Chair, even though I'm the alternate tonight, I'd like to say something. I mean, this is a real credit to our staff, and it's been this way now for several years. And I don't have to remind everybody on this commission that it wasn't always that way. And, you know, we've worked well with our auditor, and I really appreciate Fred Plessis and his staff for how they interact, and they're upfront with us, and, you know, executive committee members and finance committee members are able to, you know, speak with Fred to make sure that everything came across as, you know, 100% above board. And I really think that this is something that the commission ought to be proud of. And with that, if it's a parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chair, as the alternate, can I still make the motion that the board accept the audit?
Who's the parliamentarian in this group? So is the Essex rep here?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I'm the Essex rep, but the alternate is serving as the rep tonight, but I still attend.
So I think the answer is no, but I will allow myself to be overruled on that. No one's overruling. I think I would just, for the sake of making sure we do it right, have a motion from a non-alternate member.
In that case, I'll move to accept the audit report.
I'll second. This is Sharon.
Okay. So Andy made the motion, Sharon seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing or hearing none. Thanks, Jeff, for your comments. Again, Fred, thank you for your help, your work on this, and to staff. For staff, another great audit for one more year. Let's keep it going. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye or raise your hand indicating aye.
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 Anyone opposed to the motion? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay.
Good. We'll get that audit submitted to the clearinghouse tomorrow, and that should wrap it up.
Great.
Yeah, thank you very much, Fred. And again, thank you to Amy and Forrest. So they're the team that really makes that happen. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Okay.
Good night.
Thanks, Fred.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, next item is legislative briefing alternatives. Charlie?
Yeah, so we had some conversation at the executive committee that, you know, given COVID and we were not going to do our traditional legislative breakfast, that maybe we wouldn't even do a Zoom meeting. And so we were kind of kicking around some options a couple weeks ago in that meeting, and then wanted to bring the conversation to the full board. In the meantime, I did reach out to the legislators, I think we have, is it 49? I'm not sure, 49, 50, 51, something like that. Including the ones that represent Huntington from other counties, Barbara, in case you were going to ask. Sorry, she always asks. And really to see what they would prefer, you know, just getting something in writing from us. Would they like to have the kind of early December event? I heard from about half of them. And I should also say that we have 10 new legislators, so which is a significant chunk of them. Of the ones, I got about half of them responded. About 3/4 of those would like to have an early December conversation. So as much as I was thinking that we might do that, it seems like there's actually, they're interested in having that conversation. So at this point, I'm kind of happy to take some feedback or some other direction, but at this point, I'm thinking that we do offer it to the legislators to have that conversation, like an hour. We had been thinking, and credit to Emma for trying to schedule some things. She looked at what other organizations were doing. It looked like the morning of December 8th was free, which would have been our kind of typical breakfast morning. It's Tuesday, December 8th. So we were kind of thinking a 1 hour Zoom meeting from 8 to 9 that morning. But I guess I can just open it in terms, and I should also add, for the new legislators, I offered and will follow through on just one-on-one meetings with them, just so we can cover some of the policy conversation, but also give them more of an introduction to the RPC. The legislators that have been around for a while, I think, know us well enough, but the new ones, a couple of them know us pretty well, but many of them don't. So I'm actually looking at doing two things: one of those individual new legislator meetings, and then the policy meeting. And maybe we'll do the, so I think that's what I'm thinking at the moment. Any thoughts, reactions to that? And then I want to ask you about the subject matter. So, yeah, Jim.
I would suggest that we go ahead and do it. I think it's a compliment that they are interested.
Yeah.
It says that we're offering them something that they want that helps them. So if they're asking for it, I think it's in our best interest to go ahead and do it. So I would strongly suggest that we follow through.
Okay. That's easy enough, except for the substance of it. So let me talk about what I've got on my list. See if you all have other items that ought to be on the list. And I don't know that we can cover all of these, but Act 250 again. Still, I'm not sure what other adjective to put on that, but Act 250 will definitely be one topic. And if you have suggestions about whether it's you or somebody in your municipality or a partner organization that you think would be good to address these topics, please speak up and throw that on the table. The Act 250, I think between Regina and I, we felt comfortable enough that we could probably speak to that one. And we did have a committee that spent quite a bit of time coming up with a position that you all voted on a year or so ago. So, which, the fourth or fifth iteration of our position on that. So that one we would speak to. Then housing, the housing bill had some pieces taken out of it at the end of last year, at the end of the session. I don't know if it's coming back up. I haven't had the conversation with Senator Sirotkin, who is the real champion behind that bill. But that was one topic. We did get a request from the managers, the town managers, about dispatch or capital funding for dispatch setup. So that was another hard request. And then I've got some others, a racial equity. I'm not sure who should speak to that, or if it's just kind of a commentary. We're engaging a partner, we're interested in the conversation, or committed to the conversation. So I'm throwing, any reactions to anything so far? Yay, nay, who should speak to him? Jim, thank you for speaking, Jim.
You're welcome. I think they're all good topics, but I would add to the housing that in addition to things that might have been left out, I think we need to closely look at the things that were put in that aren't necessarily good or in the best interest of our communities. So I think we have to look at that as well. And the suggested edit, I don't think goes far enough.
The deed restriction, the
Yeah,
language there. Yep.
right. And there are a few other things as well that we can potentially talk about, but we can talk about them ahead of time and make sure that it seems appropriate. So I think there's two sides, what we take out, what we add in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good conversation. Yeah, and I'm also kind of curious with the housing piece, if there's some tie into the racial equity work, also, providing more opportunity for housing. And then I've got a few other topics. We have typically talked about water quality funding. I'm not expecting any new funding, but I also looked at the VLCT policy platform, and I think they kind of make some statements about wanting to make sure the state, continues to fund water quality investments at the municipal level. And also we have, like wastewater for villages, Westford as one example where they're trying to get their wastewater system started up. I know Huntington's been looking at that also, and a couple other places. Then transportation funding. I don't know what to say about that except yes, do it. And then the energy, climate. They did a lot of climate work last year, but there may be some more things coming up. I'm not sure the status of the Transportation Climate Initiative, which may bring some resources, but also will be some wholesale tax that will probably be invisible to the users. So that's something we haven't taken a position on, but we're, I think, interested in that conversation. Another strong point that was in the VLCT policy platform was municipal self-governance. And a couple of our municipalities, I know Winooski and I think Williston, and I don't know, Eric or Mike, if you're aware of this, but I think they did have their voters pass charter changes that said, we get the rights that any municipality, if the legislature grants one municipality the ability to do something, then every municipality should be able to do it. I'm sure it's phrased better than that, but it's an interesting tactic. And I don't know, do people have opinions about any of those last few topics? Yeah, Elaine.
Charlie, just on that self-governance item. So that is something that actually has been attempted by VLCT for several years. And it actually made it through Senate Government Ops and the Senate past year. And it's also a pilot project to allow a handful of towns to explore allowing particular charter changes to stand at the vote level and not have to go to the legislature for approval. Not all of them, not significant ones, but smaller ones. And so I'm on the VLCT board, full disclosure. For what it's worth, if CCRPC wanted to get behind that, it would be a really valuable thing for all Vermont municipalities if that passed. It started out in West Virginia. It was so successful in West Virginia, they went from a pilot to granting that authority to every town in West Virginia within a year or two. So I know it's hard to no longer be, or to consider not being a part of the Dillon's rule philosophy, but on the local level, it's something that people want to change. So,
yeah. Other perspectives, or are folks comfortable with us at least mentioning that? I know some of our larger towns have been very interested in that conversation. Jim.
I guess it sounds interesting, but I personally don't know enough about it. And I don't know how much our other representatives know about it. So unless we can have a discussion and all agree on it, like we've done for Act 250 and other things, I'm reluctant at this point in time. Doesn't mean that I don't support it, but I think we really need to have a discussion before we make a position. I have no problem just mentioning that it's something that they should look into and that we will provide them more information later, as long as we don't take a stand at this point in time.
Yeah, and some of these, we don't necessarily have positions on, but they're things that we're interested in. And that's what I don't know, somebody like, and I don't know, Elaine, if you might want to speak to it, just, with definitely a VLCT perspective, not a CCRPC position, right?
Right. I mean, right now, or would you like me to bring materials to the next meeting? Or how would you like to do that?
If I could just say, it would be really helpful to understand this issue better,
Okay.
just what it means for us,
So
because I haven't actually heard about this very much before.
if I could have 2 minutes to just pull a few things up and you could talk about some of the other topics, and then I'll give my hand when I'm more prepared.
Yeah, let me, I'm going to give you presenting abilities if I can.
Yeah, I also, if I could, Charlie, want to caution us. I don't know a ton about this either. I have a long-standing state perspective on things due to the work I've done in my career. I understand the issue to some degree, but I want to be careful that this is our, being the CCRPC meeting, and no offense to VLCT, it's a great organization that I support, but I don't know that we want to use our time shelling for them and having a representative of their board then come and shell for them as part of our meeting. I'm not so sure that's the best way to approach a meeting like ours. Again, no offense to any of the organizations. It's more of a practical matter for me than anything else.
Yeah, and I'll just offer, I'm not bringing this up because VLCT took a position on it, John. I'm bringing it up because our larger towns have taken positions on it. I know at least a few of them have passed, actually taken it to the voters, and I think there's at least a few others that are talking about doing that. I don't know if they have or not yet, or if maybe it failed at some towns too, but there is definitely some interest amongst our municipalities in this, but it has been very much more the urban towns. I think South Burlington, Winooski, I think Colchester may be interested. I don't know, Jack, if you guys have taken it to the voters, Essex. So,
Charlie, I can tell you from Winooski's standpoint, it passed, but there wasn't a whole lot of information and understanding of it.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important piece that has been discussed earlier. So, Elaine, if you have information to share, that would be great. I can tell you as a voter going in and just reading the ballot item, but not really understanding the pros and cons of it was not an easy thing. And like I said, there wasn't a whole lot of discussion out there in the community about the item on the ballot.
So what I do have is actually some very wordy documents that wouldn't necessarily translate well to being shared on my screen. But the initiatives that were in the towns this year were not necessarily a part of what VLCT was promoting at the legislative level. I think that's sort of a additional route that some towns are taking individually to that the awareness of the need. But those particular votes, so I'm not exactly sure, Mike, how it was worded for you. And like you said, there doesn't sound like there was a great deal of community outreach to ensure understanding. But again, it's a different tack that's being taken on an individual town by town basis for some towns. VLCT's proposal is based on their fostering self-governance as part of their municipal platform year to year to year, and the limitations that some towns have on trying to get things done when they have to go to the legislature to get things done. And we're not talking about big things like charter changes like what Essex is trying to do right now. That's not at all what it is. And I apologize for not having everything at the tip of my tongue here, but it has to do a lot with voters approving initiatives and having them struck down. It could be something like having non-citizen voting ability. That's something that happened in Winooski and Montpelier. I'm so sorry. I didn't prepare for this. So
I'm sorry, Elaine, to put you on the spot. The test.
Let me just see if I can't find. Yeah, this is more of a philosophical approach. Okay, so the bill that was put forward and was approved by the Senate Government Ops Committee was S-106. And it proposed a commission that would establish a 12-member self-governance commission that would consist of members who would approve plans by pilot towns to put charter changes on their ballots and allow them to implement them without going to the legislature. And the bill would task the Office of Legislative Counsel with providing administrative and legal assistance. Much as the State Board of Ed is attached to the Agency of Education, the Self-Governance Committee would be more logically attached to the Agency of Commerce and Community Development or the Agency of Administration. And unfortunately, the letter that I'm reading to you from is, oh, there it is. Okay. Looked like it had been cut off. One of the bases for this is also the legal objections to forced mergers of school districts and that kind of thing. So it's based in a desire for more local control. And I truly apologize for not having more specific talking points, but what I can offer is Karen Horn, who is the legislative director for VLCT, I'm sure would be happy to come talk about what this is, and not from a perspective of encouraging CCRPC to take up the cause. That was something I suggested as a member of CCRPC and a member town, but rather to explain to the board what it means, what they're asking for in this bill. So I'm sorry, I'm doing a terrible job of explaining.
No, that's fine. No, I think it's a new concept to the board members, and I'm sorry, I know I've been hearing about it probably for a good year and a half. So it's a little.
What I can do, I can pull some material together, Charlie, and you can email it out to the group afterwards. That would be a lot easier for all of you to read at your own leisure.
Yep.
So based on that,
Go ahead, Barbara.
it just seems to me that we won't have time as a commission to talk about that between now and the legislative breakfast, or I guess it's bring your own breakfast. So I would suggest—
You're not going to bring it for us?
I thought about it. I suggest we not include that in the agenda. But have it as perhaps an agenda item for January for the board.
Yeah, okay.
I have to agree with that. I think that's a prudent way to go forward.
No problem. Sharon.
I'd like to find out more about how the climate council is going to work. I know we haven't plugged into that much before, but they're being asked to do a huge lift and planning to meet our energy goals. So they're supposed to be developing this plan. And I know that the council has 2 regional planners appointed, which is great, but not a planning emphasis. So I'm hoping that we can at least track that but even actively find ways to participate maybe in some of the subcommittees. But I'd personally like to hear more about how that's folding out in December, if there's information.
Yeah. Are you thinking that we touch on it in the legislative briefing?
Right.
That's something that we're going to track going forward.
Yeah, I mean, given all the work we've done on energy and stuff, I think it would be, important for us to participate to what extent we can.
Yeah, I'd like to second that with what Sharon said about the climate and energy. I think that is very important to follow up, because it's a very large committee, and how is it going to work and things like that is important. But I also agree with Barbara that for a future meeting, it would be good to learn what the VLCT is talking about with the charter changes, because I had not really paid attention or know anything about it as well.
Got that? Yep. I wrote down the self-governance conversation. We'll talk about that in maybe our January board meeting. Any other thoughts, comments for legislative briefing topics, discussion areas? So, Eric, you raised your hand. Look at that. I think you did. Eric, if you're talking, we can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Sorry, Eric, or maybe put something in the chat. Any other comments?
So Charlie, on the legislative thing, this is something that you're going to provide a link to all of us to attend as we wish, just like the annual thing, except for we have to serve our own breakfast because Barbara has refused to.
That was not Barbara's responsibility.
No, you're right. You're right.
I'll talk
But
to
I
the
thought it was-
McDonald's at exit 16. We'll see if we can get each of you an egg McMuffin or something.
It's a good year to offer to provide breakfast because you only have to provide for yourself.
So, and I don't know, given based on the response, I'm expecting we might have about 20 legislators, which would be good given everything going on.
Now, in terms of legislators, especially the new ones, and the one-on-one meetings, will you invite the reps from their town to join you?
Yeah, that's a really good idea, Mike. Yeah. I would have eventually thought of that, I'd like to think, but.
And of course, there will be bacon and sausage because all you have to do is bacon the legislators and you never saw such a crowd. Sorry about that.
Yeah, and we've also been typically inviting, the town administrators and managers too. So I'd do all of that, Mike.
Yep. Jim.
Is it possible to find out which representatives responded and which did not? And any that did not, then we can contact them, if they're ours, to see if they're interested and to get information or to find out why they didn't, or just have a brief talk with them before the 8th.
Yep, your representative responded, Jim.
Okay. I think he might have, because he told me that they were really good, but I think it would be helpful for everybody.
Yeah.
To know that as well.
Yeah, like I said, I only heard from half of them, but who knows how distracted they are, right? I think, and some of them may not be doing a lot of email.
How about Bolton Huntington?
Um,
I'm glad you invited them this year.
I think we have invited them every year.
Yeah.
You
And they
have
show up.
would go, as in probably not at all.
Right.
Sorry. So Teresa Wood responded, but I didn't hear from Tom Stevens.
Okay. We can give them a poke.
Yeah. And then Barbara, I didn't hear from the 2 Addison County senators, but no, I don't think I ever have.
Right. I know you haven't.
Not surprising. Okay.
How about the senators, Charlie?
Sorry. Eric is bringing up an issue. Oh yeah. The senators. I heard from, 3 of the 6, including the 2 new ones. And Eric is bringing up an issue about zoning regulations related to cannabis retail, which is a good topic.
If I'm providing breakfast, who's providing that?
It's baked in, Barbara. Don't worry about it. That was a joke for anybody watching this, you know.
I think that should be high on the list.
Oh.
Oh,
Was that just upon Mike, or was that really a policy position?
What'd you say?
Just upon.
Just upon. All right. All right. Yeah. So, Mr. Chair, I guess we're done with that topic.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. So we'll move to item 7, Chair Executive Director Report, and I'll hand it over to you, Charlie.
Yeah, just a couple quick items here, really. I think I mentioned real briefly, we did put out a request for qualifications for racial equity consultants, partners that we could contract with and kind of help us guide our work. We initially had a deadline of Monday. Credit to John Zacconi for properly predicting that they might need more time. We extended the deadline to the coming Monday, the 23rd. But we do have a handful of folks that are interested. And so looking forward to, we'll review those and review the qualifications with the executive committee at their December meeting, and hopefully pick a consultant or a consultant team that will help us, in the next year or two with racial equity work. And then B is just a heads up, as we do about, right around every Thanksgiving, that the UPWP applications will be going out for FY22. So heads up on that. And, I'm sure I've gone around to just about all the select boards and city councils. I don't know that I've brought this up in every meeting, but lots of them I have. But those conversations, and credit to the staff and you all representing your municipalities, I felt pretty good after all those conversations with how our select boards and city councils are feeling about the services we're providing. So thank you for the role you play in that, and thanks to the staff for the work they're doing. Very, very little about me, really about everybody else. So, and other than that, we're, I think status quo in terms of operations and budget, everything seems to be going okay. We're doing, working remotely, and things are progressing along. So any questions for me? Yes, Sharon.
With regard to the racial equity stuff, is that work going to be done through the executive committee with staff, or do you envision some kind of ad hoc committee of the commission working on that too?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we're not even sure if it may end up being a separate group that we end up setting up. Mm-hmm. Just kind of an equity committee that gives advice on that work. So I'm kind of curious myself, Sharon.
Okay.
I think, I prefer that it be a little bit more open. We have made some investment in a transportation equity committee that kind of has started up, but more focused, I think, in the Old North End and Burlington, but where they're getting some more diverse voices there. And maybe that's something we can build upon. So it's more county-wide. But any suggestions you have about that? The other thing that keeps going through my mind is there's a lot of organizations engaging more deeply in this work. And some of them are setting up advisory committees and things. I'd like to not duplicate efforts if we can, maybe piggyback on somebody else's group. I don't know if Champlain Housing Trust has a group, or CVOEO has a group, or, I'm picking out 2 names of organizations that have, regional perspective that, maybe we combine forces in some of the work.
Yeah, I was thinking too along the lines of how we actually integrate it into planning work, things like exclusionary zoning, or, the stuff that we work on with communities, how we can better address that, not just in outreach and participation, which is really important, but also in actually what our policy impacts are.
Yep.
So I was going to bring that up with NVPA too. I don't know if BAPT is doing anything, but
Yeah, we did try to write our criteria for selecting a partner. That it goes beyond the education and training, that we look at policy, organizational policy, but also public policy.
Okay.
Because I agree with you, Sharon, like we're not addressing systemic racism unless we get to those things.
Right.
And so that is an important criteria for me anyway, but there will be some group dynamics in this.
Thanks.
So on that note, Charlie, I believe we left it that the executive committee will review the applicants and help with the selection process.
Right.
And I mean, I don't know if I'll say that if anyone else is interested in listening to that and giving input, you're welcome to join us at the executive committee on December. 2nd. When is it, Charlie? December 2nd.
Yeah, Wednesday, December 2nd, 5:45 p.m., which is on the second page of your agenda, if you're looking for it in writing.
I was too slow to get there. Okay, anything else, Charlie, or is that it?
No, that's all for me. Thank you.
You have, okay. Next item is committee and liaison activities and reports. Those reports are in your packet. Does anyone have anything they want to say that's on a committee or about any of those reports? Okay, then we'll move on to future agenda topics. Charlie, I'm looking at you. You want to? One I know we have is in January talking about the bill. I forget what it's even called now.
The municipal self-governance topic. Yeah. And then January is our typical year or meeting where we look at the mid-year adjustment. So we have had quite a few things get added to our plate in the last couple months. I credit to the municipalities and staff that have been working on those projects, but some new grants have come in. And so there's quite a few changes to our work program. So we'll have to do some juggling to see if we can make everything fit. And that little pesky 89 study is also, sorry, I'm blaming Eleni, but it's really my fault. Is costing some more money. So it's going to cause us to kind of have to shift some things. I think we're keeping everything on the plate, but some timing may have to shift on some projects.
We're probably going to want to also put on the agenda some discussion about the racial equity and where we're going to go with it to Sharon's point about, you know, how we're going to deal with that.
Yeah, and I think probably not January, but February, we'll probably have an 89 study update also. I think we'll get to the next stage by that point. Anybody have any other topics? Yeah, Jim.
As always. On the agenda, it talks about new legislator introductions with a question mark. But I think depending on when our meeting is, we might have some feel on new legislation as well. Because the session will have, in theory, started. So I think that would be something good to just know what's in the pipeline and what we might want to react to so that we can begin to formulate like ad hoc committees and things again, like we did last time for Act 250.
Yeah, good point. I will tell you, I got pushback from the legislators about that date. And initially, you can see the executive committee, we were having some conversation like, oh, maybe that would be a good time to have new legislators just, meet the RPC and come to our board meeting. Well, that's the night of the Biden's inauguration. So apparently people were going to be distracted with other things. So you can, everybody's going to be here though, right? Like we don't need to change the date or anything. So, okay.
I'm withholding a comment. So Okay, anything else on future agenda topics?
Yeah, if I could, in the discussion that we had regarding the sort of local control issue for January, it would be great to have both sides of that coin represented. Like I said, my time with state government, I probably understand the belief that that's not the best of ideas perspective more than I understand the local perspective. I'm not one that would want to speak to that. I don't know it that deeply. But if we're going to have sort of an understanding of a topic, especially one that seems to have two sides, it would be nice if we don't just get one side in that presentation, that we actually get both of them. So that, for what that's worth, that would be my suggestion if we're going to have a sort of a show and tell about that particular topic. Just so we have a full understanding, because there's always two sides to every coin.
In South Burlington, Maida Townsend, as one of our reps, I trust she's still doing the government operations, but I think she'd have a keen perspective on it that I would find informative.
I believe Rep. Townsend is now on House Appropriations. I don't think she's on government ops anymore.
Newspaper, right? So it is a new session. I'll have to figure it out. I'll sound them out, and maybe they can put us in touch with the head of government operations, who would probably have, I would think, a good percent. 106 may not be a great idea. Some of the
Rep. Hal Colston of Williston is on the Government Ops Committee, Chittenden County, so that's another option.
He's Winooski, and I'm not sure if we're looking for the other side, as John suggested. Hal is also on the city council and was supportive of this. So, yeah, I mean, I think if you want to get someone who's got a differing opinion on it, you might try someone else. I mean, I can talk to Hal too and find out where he stands on it, but I think I know.
Also, Rep. Gannon is the vice chair of the committee, and he's kind of the dean of changes. I don't know where he stands on it at all, but he is very highly regarded in the subject of charter changes.
Okay, anything else? Okay, hearing nothing, we have members' items or other business. Any other business? Looks like we want to get out of here by 7 o'clock. So hearing no other business, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Anyone not in favor of adjourning? Hearing nothing, I guess we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you in a couple of months.
Thank you.
Okay.
Enjoy your Thanksgiving.
Good night.
Yes.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.